3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Hello guys, what is up and welcome back to the Sports Shift with me, Ian Marquez. The NFL playoffs are well and truly underway and the divisional round is upon us. We had some pretty predictable games as well as some upsets. Let's get into it. So this is how the playoff picture looks after the wild card weekend. We have Washington doing the business against the Bucks. That was a very close game, interesting game. Looked like the Bucks had it covered until they drove down the field within 2 missed snaps. Baker fumble and give it to Jaden Daniels late. He'll see it out. So the Lions will start their playoff action at home to the Commanders. The LA Rams took care of the Minnesota Vikings. I personally thought that the Vikings never really deserved or warranted that record that they had. But Sam Darnold in the playoffs, I mean, it's what I predicted, it's what I expected. I didn't think they had the stuff that it took. LA has been there, has done it, they have experience. So I always had LA to win that game. And now LA will travel to Philadelphia to play the Eagles. Eagles in a very controlled win over the Packers. The Packers never really put up much of a fight. However, the Eagles offense didn't look too great. It wasn't running on all cylinders. I mean, I know they had control of that game, but I wasn't too convinced. Heading over to the AFC, the other game that I predicted incorrectly, we went 4 for 2 this weekend. I mean, that's not terrible. The other game I predicted incorrectly was Chargers and Texans. The Texans defense showed up to play. Texans offense wasn't going great, and the Chargers defense was putting up a fight. Both offenses sputtered, but Texans defense took control of that game and basically did all the work. He just showed us how to not make too many mistakes. They ended up getting 4 takeaways, and when they do that, they're going to win the game. So now they have a rematch with Kansas City. They've been playing each other a lot in the playoffs in recent years. Kansas City annihilated them both times in recent years, and we'll see if that changes. On the other side, Baltimore took care of business against Pittsburgh. These Ravens are playing so different. They're not beating themselves. They're playing efficiently, playing well. Lamar Jackson on an MVP tear, and he'll be heading to his MVP rival in Josh Allen and the Bills. And that's going to be the game of the weekend, Sunday Night Football. I can't wait. We'll talk about it a little bit more. So this is how I'm predicting the playoffs to go. This is my playoff picture. I have the number 1 seeds taking care of business, the Lions winning against Washington, and the Chiefs winning against the Texans. Although the Texans defense is strong and the Chiefs offense hasn't been great this season, I think they'll take care of business. I have the Ravens winning out against the Bills to face the Chiefs in the conference championship, and I have the Eagles beating out the Rams to face the Lions in the conference championship. I have Ravens and Lions going through to the Super Bowl. So let's see if my predictions come true. On Saturday, we have the 2 number 1 teams playing after their long-deserved rest. So we have the Texans traveling to the Chiefs. In the wildcard game, Joe Mixon took care of business. He had over 100 yards. And whenever he's had over 100 yards, the Texans are 6-2 in those games. So I guess the key for the Chiefs, hold Joe Mixon to under 100 yards and anything can happen. It should be theirs for the taking. On the other side of the ball, both run defenses are really good. The Chiefs utilize their run defense just to keep teams honest. They don't really rely on it. So that would be an interesting matchup. In terms of the Texans offense, it's been alright. It hasn't been great. They typically rely on their defense to take care of business, and the offense just doesn't shoot themselves in the foot. The defense versus the Chargers, as I told you, held them to 12 points. They scored 8 of them, had 4 picks. They pressured Justin Herbert 50% of the time on his dropbacks. They have held teams to 3.8 yards per carry versus running backs, which is 2nd in the league. Ironically, so have the Chiefs. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the running back matchup plays out. I think that's going to be a key point in the game. In terms of the offense, the Chiefs offense has sputtered a little bit this season. They haven't looked as good as they have in previous years. That might be due to the wide receivers changing so often. But they're in the playoffs and they just know how to get things done. They had 2 losses and it doesn't bother them. Like, they got the number 1 seed in the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes will take care of business typically. I would never want to play him in the playoffs. They'll just step up. They'll find a way to get it done as they have all season. They've been 3rd down on offense this season, and although they've been low scoring in points, they've been winning games. The issue for the Chiefs has been the left tackle position. He's allowed 12 sacks this season. So can Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson find a way to exploit that weakness? We'll see how it goes. Overall, I do have the Chiefs winning out in this one, but I do have the Texans covering because the Chiefs always keep it close, but they find a way to win. The Washington Commanders, after a hard-fought win versus the Bucks, are headed to Detroit. The Lions can beat you in so many ways. It's basically a case of how do you want it? I mean, you want to beat them on the ground? They have Sonic and Knuckles. Jamar Gibbs has 16 touchdowns this year, over 1,400 yards, and he averages about 5.6 yards per carry. Dave Montgomery is back in action after missing the last few weeks. They're going to crush you on the ground, but if you want to force him to throw it, that's fine. Jared Goff has 37 TDs this season. That's 4th in the NFL. And he has the 2nd best QB rating. Their offense is number 1. They're 4th on 3rd down. And they're 2nd in the red zone, so they don't mess about. They can beat you on the ground with Sonic and Knuckles, or they can go through the air. They have the likes of Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta. Jamar Gibbs is also crazy out the backfield when he's catching the ball. They'll beat you in so many ways, and the only real way to compete with the Lions is to score. How does the Lions defense, that's been so banged up this season, match up against Scary Terry and the Commanders offense? Well, on offense, the Commanders have been really good this season. They've averaged about 28 points per game. That's 5th in the NFL. Similar to the Lions, they're pretty good on 3rd down. They're 6th in the NFL on 3rd down. A lot of the time, they rely on Jaden Daniels' legs, so it's going to be a really cool matchup to see how Jaden Daniels uses his legs against this aggressive Lions defense. Aaron Glenn has been having them performing magnificently, so let's see how that turns out. Both teams have the identity that they love to go for on 4th down. Dan Campbell never wavers. If it comes to a situation, he'll always go for it. And if you look against the Bucks, Jaden Daniels went for it 5 times, completing it 3 times. Often he does rely on his legs in these situations, so Lions have to be aware of that. And I think that is where the game will be decided, on 4th down. If you're a betting person, I'd say consider like betting kickers to go under their points totals, because there ain't gonna be much kicking in this game unless it's extra points. You have 2 explosive offenses, so it's pretty much going to come down to who sputters, who can't score. The real matchup for me is on defense. The Commanders are 30th in the league versus running backs, averaging 4.9 yards per carry. They're facing David Montgomery and Jamar Gibbs. I already told you, Jamar Gibbs has one of the best resumes this season. He's tied for 1st with 16 TDs. I don't see how you compete. So I think that's where the Lions dominate. I think that's how they dominate this game, and I do think the Lions run away with it, because if you keep it close, Jaden Daniels will pull off something. So the Lions need to put this to bed, and I think that's exactly what happens. To kick off the Sunday games, we have LA Rams, who have overcome the Minnesota Vikings, traveling to Philadelphia to play the Eagles, who just took care of business against the Packers. The Rams offense has been a little uncertain in recent weeks. They're 0-8 on 3rd down and conceded 5 sacks against the Eagles in week 12. Week 12, Eagles won convincingly, but since then, the Rams have looked a lot better. They've only taken 4 sacks in the last 6. However, they've been held to under 21 points in 4 straight games. So, I guess they rely on the defense. Well, let's talk a bit about the defense. The defense has held opponents to under 10 points in 4 or 5 straight. And they sacked the Vikings 9 times. If they can get after Jalen Hurts, that can be the key to success. They look so much better in recent weeks. The key matchup here this week will be the running game for the Eagles against that defensive front for the Rams. Eagles offense versus the Rams in week 12. Saquon went for his biggest game of the year, 255 yards, 2 TDs, and 47 yards in the air. AJ Brown had a TD and went for 109 yards. So, the Rams know how the Eagles beat them. Can they handle it this time? Saquon has ran for 100 yards in 7 of his last 8 games, but Hurts has also taken 2 sacks in his last 4 games. That's where you see, can the likes of Jared Verse get aggressive and take care of business in this one? The defense for the Eagles has also been a key aspect. They held the Packers to 10 points, and they had 4 takeaways, including 3 interceptions. If held quarterbacks to 82 QBR, which is 3rd in the NFL, and they amassed 41 sacks this season, which is about mid-table, so as expected. So Eagles are coming off the back of winning 13 of 14 games. The real matchup here is Saquon, basically. If the Rams can quiet down Saquon a little bit, force Jalen Hurts to throw because he hasn't thrown it that much. Maybe they'll get a turnover. Maybe Jalen Hurts will get a little nervous. You know how the Eagles start slow in the first quarters and pick up in the second half. So that's really what I'm looking for. If the Rams can get up to a lead and force the game script to change, force the Eagles to throw, keep the ball out of Saquon's hands, I think they do have a chance. However, if Eagles start to run the clock, start to dominate the ball, I don't see how the Rams compete, because if Saquon gets going, especially in the second half, I think it's a wrap. I do think the Eagles win it, but I think it's a lot closer than people expect. And I do think the Rams get up to a lead. So I would bet the Rams for, first to 10 points, that sort of thing. And finally, the game of the week. Our two contenders for MVP, we have Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen, as the Ravens travel to Buffalo. Ravens have looked so impressive this year. Lamar Jackson, who's my MVP, his best statistical year. Josh Allen, who really doesn't have that many pieces around him, no 1,000-yard receiver, no 1,000-yard back, but he still found a way to get it done. He can't play hero ball when he's ready. This game is just going to be amazing. So let's get into some stats. Well, Lamar's been doing it with his legs. He's rushed for 60 yards in 3 straight games. He's had 100+ QBR rating in 6 of his last 7 games, only thrown 1 pick. And he's thrown for 2+ TDs in 7 games. How do you stop him? If you keep the ball to his hands, I'll give it to Derrick Henry. Against the Steelers, Derrick Henry had 186 yards, averaging 7.2 per carry. He's had 1,900 yards this season, tied for 16 touchdowns, and he's had 5.9 yards per carry. I mean, how do you stop that? The Ravens have scored 28+ points in 5 straight games. They started off slow, but in recent weeks, their defense has stepped it up. The Ravens defense has held teams to under 18 points in their last 5 games, and they've had the second most sacks this season. Versus running backs, they've kept them to 4.5 yards per carry. So that matchup between the Ravens defense and James Cook is going to be very important. Also against Josh Allen and his legs, will he run it that often? I know he'll do it when he needs to. Especially both teams can go for it on 4th down, and both QBs are mobile. So that's going to be a really interesting matchup there. In terms of the Bills offense, Josh Allen just had 135 QBR versus the Broncos. They're coming off winning 11 of 13 games. Their defense was really impressive versus Bo Nix. However, the one weakness they did have was against the legs. He only ran it 4 times, but he ran it for 43 yards, amassing over 10 yards per carry. Against Lamar Jackson, that is a risky game to play. If you don't have any spies, he'll find a way to get the first down, and you will feel like there's no way of stopping it, However, they're coming off of holding opponents to 4 straight games under 24 points. So defense holding teams to under 24 points. Ravens scoring 28+ points in 5 straight games. Something has to give. Which way is it going to go? The key matchup here is actually Derrick Henry. When the Ravens have given him the ball and he's rushed for 90+ yards, the Ravens are 11-0. So if the Bills cannot stop Derrick Henry, I think it's a wrap. Will they have Zay Flowers back potentially? The pass rush has been really good. They've been second in sacks, but they've not been great against mobile QBs, so that's going to be very interesting. It's basically James Cook versus Roquan Smith. It's the best rushing defense in the league. They're first against running backs with 4.5 yards per carry. I think this game is going to be decided on the ground. The likes of Derrick Henry, and then Bills offense versus that really good rush defense of the Ravens. I'm taking my MVP, Lamar Jackson, to win it. I'm taking him to win the whole AFC. So I might be wrong. They might sputter out here, but I'm so confident in the Ravens. I don't think it's going to be that close, I think the Ravens are going to run away with it. Josh Allen has been immense, but in the playoffs, you rely on your pieces, and he really doesn't have that much to go around him. He'll have the likes of Shakir, who will probably get the most targets, but he doesn't have that many playmakers. I'm going with the Ravens, man. So how about our TD parlay? Well, last week was a little bit disappointing. It should have hit, but Saquon decided to be a classy guy and take a knee. Go you, Saquon. So this week, we're going for Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Saquon Barkley. Taking a running back committee, because why not? Saquon can't do that to us twice. This game is going to be way closer, so if he has a chance, he's going to have to punch it in. Jahmyr Gibbs is so consistent, whether it's in the air or on the ground. It's a little concerning that David Montgomery is back, but even when the two of them are playing, both usually get touchdowns, so you can take either one. I'm sure Jahmyr Gibbs will find a way to get in the end zone, and Derrick Henry has been ever relentless. Against this Bills defense, I have no doubt, unless Lamar takes it in himself, that Derrick Henry will find a way to get in the end zone. So I think it's a pretty safe bet. All the odds are 1.5. It pays out at about 3.5, 3.75 to 1. So, you know, put a little 20 on it, get a nice change in your pocket, and get ready for the Super Bowl. Now, you're not allowed parlay. Well, I have 4 teams here because only 4 teams can win, so we're running down the odds. Last week, the Chargers let us down, but don't worry about that. We have the Chiefs and the Lions, both 1 seeds, to take care of business against 6 seed Commanders and the 4 seed Texans. Both had a really great push to the playoffs, on the road for the Commanders and at home for the Texans, but I think their playoff push ends here. Number 1 teams are back, they're getting healthy, and I think they'll take care of business. On the other side, we have the Eagles. Eagles should handle the Rams once they don't beat themselves. If Saquon gets going, I think that's game over. So I have the Eagles narrowly beating out the Rams, and I have the Ravens pretty comfortably winning against the Bills. I'm so confident in the Ravens this season. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Feel free to check out another one of my videos. Otherwise, enjoy this weekend's playoff games, and see you guys later.